Hey, everybody. Long time no see. I was on vacation last week, finally, and we had such a great time in the Bahamas. And I hope all of you guys had a great Mother's Day. We're back on normal schedule. I'm so happy to be back. And today we did a little survey because we wanted to know exactly how better to serve you. And I've been so touched by many of your feedback about how our work is helping many of you to have hope and hope for healing and reversing your autoimmunity. And today, I really want to talk to you guys about gaining clarity about the foods that you want to eat. Having been both vegan on the very restrictive realm to a very flexible diet, eating all kinds of meat, I've explored both sides of the coin. And what I can tell you as a registered dietitian who has a master's degree in nutrition is that the pendulum will always swing. And I don't like what's happening out there in all the books that are being written in terms of health and wellness and the foods, because a lot of the times there's a lot of confusion and there's a lot of contradictions. This is mainly because we can't focus on the foods that are outside of us, right? Food needs to be metabolized. It needs to be assimilated. It needs to be eliminated. And it needs to be processed biochemically within our bodies. That means genetically, you're predisposed to certain things. So what I'd like to focus on in my programs is not so much this is what you eat and this is the diet that you should adapt, like autoimmune paleo, right? And sometimes plant-based is getting a lot of attention, and as well as intermittent fasting, keto diets. And I've prescribed a lot of these diets at different phases during my career in the last 20 years to my patients, as well as experimented them with myself. And what I've learned was that food is something so personal for each and every one of us. And I learned that a one man's poison can be another man's medicine. Knowing that, I am very cautious in really directing you to say, this is exactly the diet. There is no one size fits all. I have to take into consideration your cultural backgrounds, your preferences in your eating habits, and what are some of the things and the relationships that you have, most importantly with yourself, but with your food as well. Because food is so much more than just something that we do to nourish our bodies. We don't eat food to sustain our life anymore. We have overindulgence and we have food addictions. There's chemicals, processings that goes on in our food industry, so much so that it does cause a threat to our health and wellness. Having said that, I believe food is not the enemy. It's our thoughts around the foods and then the feelings that our thoughts trigger that cause us to make choices in the foods that we put into our bodies. So I like to focus on what's called intuitive eating, because really at the end of the day, if I can just teach you what your body is trying to communicate with you versus me dictating exactly what foods are right for you, because honest to goodness, I don't care how learned I am with so many degrees, I can never know exactly what is right for you. It's different for every single individual. But there's principle-based, foundational things that I want to talk about at the end of our episode and our time together that I want you to adopt to make sure that you drive your behaviors and your eating habits based on foundational pillars that's going to serve you no matter what phase of autoimmunity, severity of autoimmunity, or whatever might be happening in your life, right? So remember, in going back to the topic of intuitive eating, remember, gut is your second brain, and it's been trying to tell you for a long time that something is off. But yet, even though it's trying to tell you, you know what we do is we look to the doctors to tell us exactly what's wrong. We ignore the signs, and then The symptoms have to get bad enough to get our attention to go seek help outside of us. That to me is foundationally wrong. And so that's where I normally like to start in my program. Because many autoimmune patients tell me that their rheumatologists tell them food doesn't matter, that they need medications for the rest of their lives. And it's like you and I both know if medications work for our disease, food does too, because it's biochemistry, it's the assimilation, it's all the things. And medications comes from nature. A lot of the times they are concocted from natural medicine. It's holistic herbs and things that produce certain things. It's just medications are highly researched and tested, but it's not black and white. Science is never black and white. It's not a for sure thing. It's just has a little bit more scientific evidence behind it, right? Like I said, just as we alter biochemistry with the meds, foods do matter. And depending on the stage and severity of your autoimmunity, you will need to follow different diets along the way. And there are many different diets out there, like I mentioned, and many contradict one another. So it's not your fault if you stay really confused. And it's important to remember that foods are so much more than something that you eat to satisfy your hunger. Food is memories, it's connection. It can be our coping mechanism, it's relationships, it's an experience, it's an enjoyment of life. And it can provide us with community, with the people that we love. For example, for me, I grew up in South Korea, and I have some comfort foods that my mom used to make. And whenever I get sick or when I'm down on myself, those are the foods that I crave. And for example, it's like chicken porridge with a lot of ginseng and stuff. And it's called samgaetang, right? With kimchi is served as a staple food. And that used to be the healing food for me. So for me to tell you to eat that from my reference point of growing up from South Korea would be not right for you who grew up here in the United States. There's chicken noodle soup here in the States, and many of my friends grew up eating the Campbell soup. And is that any better or worse than home-cooked noodles or porridge, right? It all has to do with your context, right? Content to the context. And many of you consider food as something outside of you, and really it's something that you need to feel. You want to know what it feels like. Does it cause stomach upset? Does it cause indigestion? Does it cause bloating? Does it cause fatigue? Does it cause headaches? Some of these things, we don't even pay attention. We just pay attention to a point where it does provide us with enough discomfort. And then you know what we do? We go to the doctor to figure it all out, right? We ignore the signs and symptoms. Remember, the thoughts that trigger feelings is what drives which foods you choose. And they all work together. And that's why I focus on the psychology of eating, your behaviors, because thoughts do matter. Food for thought is just as important as the foods that you put into your body. And then the feelings cause a vibrational frequency to impact our level and efficiency of our metabolism. So it doesn't really matter sometimes if you eat the healthiest food when you eat it at a desk, highly stressed to the max during your workday, versus eating McDonald's, Big Mac, savoring every bite, just reminiscing about, for me, coming to the States and enjoying a hamburger where it wasn't so abundant in South Korea. So for me, it's kind of a memory when I think about Big Mac, right? It brings up a lot of joyful memories with my mom. And intuitive eating means that you begin to listen to what feels right, as opposed to adopting a diet because someone like me said you should, right? I want to be the guide that tells you to listen to your body, because only you can be empowered enough to read into the sensations of your body. I can't read into those sensations. You have to tell me what you feel, and based on that, the doctors might give you some prescribed medications, but how backwards is that? That's a broken strategy, is why all of us remain sick in the conventional medical setting. As I said, I've been both vegan and carnivorous, and I can tell you not every vegan diet is healthy, and not every carnivorous diet is healthy. Everything depends. And as a learned individual with lots of degrees and highly scientific background, I can provide you with information on what foods to eat. But I know that your food tolerance and your needs will change based on the phase of your life and the severity of your condition and the symptoms by which you're taking and what type of medication you're on. I'd much rather provide you with foundational principles to guide your decisions versus telling you to adopt a strict diet. I also want to focus on what you should do versus what you shouldn't, because a lot of the doctors are busy telling you exactly what you can't have. And to a human mind, you know what happens is the more I tell you not to eat something, the more you're going to want that thing, right? So I'm not really keen on the restrictions because I know how our human minds work. So I'm going to give you 10 things that you ought to do, and you might want to write it down. Number one is eat in season. Right now in Georgia, everything's abundant. We have a lot of vegetables, lots of fruits that are in season. And that's what you want to pick. And you want to eat local. I don't need to get an apple from New Zealand when I can get it here in Georgia, right? I want you to, number three, cook your meals. Get in the habit of cooking your meals and find some enjoyment and empowerment from cooking your own meals, especially post-COVID, you guys. Like, we all have cooked enough meals, and I hope you guys have gotten some enjoyment out of that. It's control, it's power. It's being empowered to do the right things for you, right? The connection with your food. I want you to be gluten and dairy free. Avoid nightshades for 28 days. Practice intermittent fasting, which means you want at least 12 to 15 hours of complete break from eating. Number 7 is to hydrate, drink water. I don't want to say don't drink carbonated water, but hydrate yourself. Make sure you get plenty of water throughout the day. 8 is to exercise to metabolize what you're feeding your body because it helps you. And then eat mostly vegetables and eat organic. And here's another thing is things like desserts, alcohol like wine to celebrate are allowed within reason. Learning to be sensible is a lot more important. That's where you'll find peace. That's where you'll find freedom. And that's where you'll find your body to be healing, is when you start to be sensible and everything is gained. You're not so heavily restrictive, because you're going to focus on the thing that you can't have, right? And so short-term restrictions leads to long-term freedom, right? And so I would tell you, be sensible when it's when we become overly restrictive that we tend to veer off course, almost always. And I just want to say a thing or two about the alkaline method, which is the proprietary strategy or a method that I founded or created to help you to go through and to put all the pieces of the broken pieces of the puzzle together. It's all about addressing your body, your mind, and health as a whole ecosystem. Paying attention to your body and connecting to it and to allow it to tell you what it needs is key to successful life, health, and longevity in all that you do. And health is something you absolutely need to live the best life. So I hope this was a little clear on how I want you to think about food. It's not another diet that's going to be the answer to your question, but rather looking at the foundational principles and making things be very simple as opposed to making things so hard, because we tend to really commit to the things, and whether it be making things hard or easy, we're committed to making them every which way. And eating should be pleasant, eating should be pleasurable, and it should be all the joyful things. And it's one of the gifts of life, right? So I don't want to take that away from you, because for so long I lived in the space of this restrictive eating, and it was all I can do to exercise my willpower to try to restrict myself from enjoying life. But to me, you follow and be sensible enough so you can enjoy all things life has to offer is the ultimate goal through the alkaline method. I hope this was really helpful for you. We'll continue to dive deeper into exactly what foods and what really the intuitive eating looks like for me. I'm going to be coming more from my kitchen. And if you have not done so, you know that we have Autoimmune Health Transformation Program. We also have a private Facebook group. It's called Autoimmune Health, Tribe of Autoimmune Health Rebels. And so you can join me there where we have private conversations about living the day-to-day in a healing way to really pay attention to our second brain, which is our gut, utilizing the alkaline method. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope to see you guys all next week. Thanks for joining. Bye.